Hi there and welcome to a new capability in the Moose framework for DCS World. This new capability will be around the air traffic control ground operations at Airbases. What is ATC GROUND? Well, basically it's about making players behave on the airbase. So the ATC GROUND will take preventive actions at Airbases to prevent players not behaving and not following the rules. The ATC GROUND class is a new class. Actually, there are three classes. You got a class for Caucasus, a class for Nevada, and a class for Normandy at the moment, where all the air bases are modeled. ATC GROUND will guard player maneuvers while on the airbase. It provides warnings to the players who are speeding on the taxiway. And speeding means driving faster than a preset speed limit, for each airbase. The other point is that players will be kicked who are speeding while taxiing on the taxiway. So players who are consistently driving too fast on the taxiway will be kicked out of the mission. Players who are driving on bare ground beside the taxiway will be kicked, and a warning system is in place to warn people to get back on the taxiway properly. Allow takeoff on the runway. So each airbase in the map has been modeled, the respective runways have been taken into account, and when players are entering the runway, the speed limit will not be applicable anymore, and the player can take off. Players who are taking off on the taxiway, who are trying to do that, will be kicked. Right, so this is the current implementation of the ATC GROUND class. I think for servers, this will become a very welcome class to be implemented and used by the community. I foresee, and it's already in my mind, to grow this class into other functionalities, for example, to ensure that players guard a respectful distance between the planes on the taxiway, so they don't drive into other planes. And when that happens, those players would be kicked out of the mission, and collision situations would be avoided. Provide additional information while taxiing on the runway direction, especially, you get a number or a place where to taxi to for takeoff, and the system could guide you to follow the right direction while taxiing to get to that point. Add additional APC operations, maybe in another class. For example, assistance in landing or assistance while circling around the airbase, following the airbase procedures before getting permission to land. And also the ATC GROUND class, I want to convert that and implement it into a finite state machine so that you can customize the behavior of the ATC GROUND classes and add your own sound files, your own messages, or even trigger other events within your running mission when a certain event happens at the ATC GROUND monitoring process. So let's have a look how to script and use the ATC GROUND classes within your mission. And it's actually very simple. So basically you got three classes being modeled upon a base class which is named ATC GROUND, and this actually contains all of the logic to govern the behavior of the players. But then you got deviations, Normandy, Nevada, Caucasus, and those are basically containing the different runways at the airbase and the maximum speed limit per airbase, what is allowed to taxi on and where to take off. So those three classes have a new constructor, and basically you use the new constructor by create a new ATC GROUND object, right? And that would then contain the ATC GROUND operations monitoring process. And when you don't provide a parameter in the new, it will start guarding all the airbases on the map. In this case Normandy, in this case Nevada, in this case Caucasus. And when you give parameters, and that would be a list, so the accolades are important, a list of the airbases that you want to guard. For example, Normandy Chipelle, Airbase Normandy Beuzeville, So when you do that, when you want to specify and guard specific airbases, the Airbase wrapper class becomes really important, which contains, you know, enumerations for Normandy, Nevada, and Caucasus, and all of the respective airbases are enumerated under that enumeration type. Yeah, so this is really important. There is something I need to explain before you can use this class in your running missions on your servers, and that is in multiplayer situations. DCS has a bug, has an error that has been consistently in the system since the release of 1.5, which is already in the system since 2015, I guess. Yeah. Fortunately, Bob of the community and myself have been working together, and we created a system to actually work around the multiplayer bug. Now, what is the bug about? So basically, well, DCS has a lot of bugs, a series of bugs, and some of them are quite severe for mission designers. But one of them is that when a player connects to a server from a client, then normally, you know, when a mission would kick a player, in my example, if the Moose system would kick a player, a destroy API would be called. But when you run, you know, when you do that from the server and the client is connected remotely to the server, then that kick will not happen and the player would just remain alive within the mission. And this is really frustrating and annoying, right? Because it didn't work for such a long time. Fortunately, as I said, we have created a workaround, and the workaround is basically using something I need to explain, using the GUI or the game GUI environment. So basically, it's a bit technical, but when on the server, when you run a mission, you will actually two kinds of environment, actually three, but for this moment I'll discuss the two. You got the scripting environment, which is basically where the Moose framework is working in, and this is like a black box in the server running, and the mission is using that scripting environment using the APIs. So when you do a Moose call, Moose will use the SSE, the scripting environment, and execute the, you know, the commands being triggered by Moose or by your mission. However, Moose also, the DCS World capability or system also has game GUI environments. So what are those? These are separate parallel Lua environments where you can script logic in, but specifically for server administration and server control. So what we created now is, since this path is not working, I want you to set up a simple slot blocker system on your server, and it's very easy, and I will show you how to do this. And the Moose system will communicate with the simple script blocker. So when a player needs to be kicked, the ATC ground control is calling a Moose API, right? So Moose is doing that, monitoring that, and will then talk to SSB, the simple script blocker, when a player needs to be kicked, and will say this player needs to be kicked, and then the GUI, the game GUI, will kick the player, and that is working perfectly. So if you install this GUI on your server, the player kicking will work perfectly. And this is a great workaround, and I would like to thank Bob for his help and his suggestions. He also has been looking into reviewing the code that I wrote, and he has been advising upon certain things. So I really encourage you to download the script slot blocker from the Bob GitHub site. Let me open that for you. So here it is, and it's this file here, simple slot block game GUI, that you need to download. You can download the zip file, right? And you just unzip and then copy this file. Let me go back here. You need to copy this file into your users, saved games, DCS scripts Could also be DCS Alpha, DCS Beta, but you may need to create a scripts directory. If it's not there, just create it and then copy this file in there. And then when you restart DCS, it will pick up this file automatically, and it will, incorporate the logic that's embedded here within all your running missions. You can control whether the slot blocker has been correctly loaded by opening the dcs.log file, which is in the save games DCS logs directory then. So you load that up, dcs.log, and look for a line that says luanet loaded -simple slot block version 1.1. That's important because we did a version upgrade by Siribob and an addition from myself in there. So when you have this installed, the Move system will perfectly communicate with your server and will kick players who are not behaving at the airbase. And this concludes the explanation. I'm excited to show you how this is working, how monitoring works for the player experience. Right, so I'm loading the mission here. I'm going to show you now how the system is behaving when you are entering a multiplayer mission. So I got my server up, this is my client, and I'm going to select the first red airplane, which is located on Batumi. One of the things is when you have the slot blocker system activated on your server, then you will see on your client these kind of messages appearing as a player. So it says slot allowed, and it says, or it may say, depending on the switch that you have activated, flight control occupied, red SU-25T. So here we are in the plane. Now I'm going to show you, it says ATC welcome at Batumi. The maximum taxiing speed is 50 kilometers per hour. So now I'm gonna quickly or slowly increase the speed, but for this I'm gonna reset my joystick for a second. There we go. And I'm gonna slowly increase the throttle to get some speed. While doing this, you'll see, let me get the speedometer a bit better viewed, right? So you see here the speed is increasing. Not putting too much thrust. And you see the speeding kicking off. You get 3 warnings and then you get kicked. By the way, this is in a multiplayer scenario, and then you'll see this message here. Slot currently disabled, pick a different slot. But what will happen is in the background, the slot blocker will automatically reset the slot. So you can, when you select a role, you can select the same airplane again and try this again. The maximum taxiing speed of 50 kilometers per hour needs to be respected as a result. So you need to ensure that you're not increasing the speed while taxiing on the airbase. You can't really take off. So if I'm going full throttle, right, and I'm speeding up like 67, 95, even before the third warning was given, I'm already kicked, because there is a maximum speed limit that has been set within the system. You just can't take off at an airbase. The other thing now is how the system will behave is that when you take off, so when you start, and let me quickly go here, and you go into the runway for takeoff, and you're respecting the speed perfectly. You may get a warning or something that you're speeding a little bit, like here, yeah, like 52. Okay, I'm slowing down, back. Okay, I'm below 50. But now when you get at a runway, So now you have takeoff clearance. So you're at the runway. Now you can just accelerate and take off without any problem. I'm going to speed that up. Oh no, I can't because I'm in multiplayer. So I'm already at 200 kilometers per hour. 250, 260, right? Okay, 320, I can take off, no problem. The system is designed like this, that when you're in the air, right, there will be no message anymore given. And when you're exiting the zone of the airbase perimeter, the system will not control anymore your airplane. So you will just fly and you will be airborne. When you arrive in a new airbase that is controlled and you would land, then that airbase would welcome you. And I'm going to show you this as well. For this I have another airplane set up, a blue one. Right, so I'm gonna just quickly demonstrate this. It started a bit slow. Right, so here we are, lowering my gear. And let me, I'm at my development machine, so I don't have all the equipment like you guys have. Now let me land here. Yeah, laugh. I'm not a good pilot, I told you. I am not a pilot. But there is some way of landing this thing, I guess. Right? Right, so here I am, shoot it. Oh, I dropped the chute. That's not good. Okay, so I will crash. Now, if I crash and I land it, what would happen if I enter this? Interesting, isn't it? Well, this is what happens, because when you exited the runway, and you would, you run into the grass, you get kicked. Also, that is a traffic rule violation. You may not drive on the grass. So let me take that roll again and let me try a second attempt to land perfectly. This time I may not make a fool of myself. All right. Right, that looks like a better landing. Now I shoot. Yes, good. Cable is holding. So I'm landing, I guess. Yeah. I'm still at the runway. Stable. And when I get clearance to taxi to the runway, here we go. Now let me take this turn here, right? This one. I'm just gonna slowly turn here into this small road here. And I'm leaving the runway, but I'm still on the taxiway. Right? What does it say? It says, welcome at Senaki Koki. And I am at the maximum taxi speed of 50 kilometers per hour on this airbase. So and now I'm speeding 51, so I need to slow down, right? So this provides you with a good tool to actually make your multiplayer servers being governed, being guarded, and players need to behave a bit better on the runway. It's not perfect yet. I think there's still a couple of things that need to be added, but this is a first step, I think, to a better airbase behaving mechanism. And I hope you find this interesting. Let me see if I have something else I need to say. So let me explain you how this was made. So when we take, for example, the Normandy map here, and we zoom a bit out, and what I've done is for each airbase, and there are quite a lot in Normandy, for each airbase I've taken a model. I have surrounded the runways with a polygon. Some of them are quite easy. I mean, in Normandy there were a lot of airbases with one runway, but here in England you got a lot with two, right? And I think I've done a fairly good job to really model where the runway is. Like this wouldn't be a runway, it would only start here, right? Now within your mission you won't have these zones populated, but that doesn't matter. I've added for each map the parameters of the runways, right, in a polygon structure. They're embedded within the class. I got my test classes here so I can regenerate those polygons and then extract the coordinates that are given as a result of the tracing of the polygons. And I just restructure that a bit and add them here again in this structure here, right? So when you use this class, just know that the runways are automatically bordered by the implementation. So you can imagine the amount of, well, it was kind of a lot of work to really, you know, get all of these borders for all the three maps, so Caucasus, you know, Normandy, Nevada. Then extract the coordinates, make the classes, implement the logic, and all of this. So this is the first step, and I hope, you know, again in the near future that I will be able to add a couple of new logics, like guarding respectful distance between planes on the taxiway, kick players, provide additional information where the runway is, and so on, right? So I hope you enjoy this class. I really encourage you to use it. Let me quickly show you the script, how a script looks like then, and you will be surprised how short it is. Right, so this is the Normandy script class. Come on. No, it doesn't show it. Doesn't matter. Let me open that here. So I go Normandy. Voila, here it is. So you will find in the test mission ATC GROUND Normandy new. It will monitor all airbases, but you can also monitor specific airbases by, you know, giving a list. So mind the accolades, a list of airbases that you want to monitor, right? And those are then embedded in the Moose Missions repository, which are here. So let me go into that. Right, so I go repositories, Moose Missions, right? But then select release 2.3, that's the alpha release, and there you'll find the air traffic control missions, right, with all of their sources like this one, Caucasus. Okay, I hope you find this interesting, and see you next time. Bye bye.